Okay, so welcome to week 4 of the Thinking and Feeling Like Your Free Self series. This topic, obviously, it's vast. It takes some time to, first of all, learn the material and then start to really incorporate it and see how it's working in your life. So I hope that you can start to see how shifts can happen. And even if you're not feeling like, oh gosh, I've had, tremendous shifts in the last 3 weeks. Well, of course you have it, right? Because as we always talk about, those old thoughts are the smooth downhill, and we've got our roller skates on, and they're just so easy to go down. And building new thoughts is a process. And so I just want to mention that so that you can, continue to have patience around it and just continue to build it and see shifts, even small micro shifts, as something that is actually progress and moving you towards where you want to go. So this is exciting stuff. I do hope that you're, seeing something different in this kind of a methodology that you haven't maybe done in the past. So I'd like to spend just a little bit of time today kind of taking you through the process that you've learned so far. And I want to do it through a client who's very representative of most of the people that I work with. And I'll call her Melissa. It's not a real name. Her name doesn't matter. But let's look at kind of her journey a little bit based on what we've learned so far. Her story, like a lot of us, she'd been heavy pretty much her whole life. She'd tried 1,000 different diets and plans to lose weight, a new one every month or whatever it was. And it was just, she'd gotten to the point where she was extremely frustrated with the process because nothing was working. Maybe she'd be able to lose a few pounds by being really restrictive, but of course she couldn't maintain a restrictive regime because none of us can. We weren't designed to do that. And so she wasn't able to stick with it. So falling off the proverbial wagon would always lead to, that weight being put right back on. And this was, a really chronic kind of cycle that she was in, and a lot of frustration for her. And because of her experiences of, I'm only able to lose a couple of pounds when I'm really restrictive, and then the rest of the time I'm either, struggling to maintain or I'm gaining, her brain told her the only way to lose weight is to be super restrictive, is to, be all in, to be hungry a lot of the time, all of those things that we associate with a diet, right? And that's the way her brain worked, because she had that experience, and then she had that repeated thought over and over. So she was really operating from that belief that that's what it would take. So her efforts had been around, how can I learn to control myself and be restrictive all the time? That was her goal. That's what she was shooting for, right? And so that led her to do a lot of things that were not in alignment with what she really wanted, which was, I want to have freedom with food. I want to eat when I'm hungry only and not think about food at other times unless my tummy is grumbling. I want to be able to stop eating when I'm full. I want to stick to things that make me feel good and energetic, and occasionally have fun too, but only when it's like truly worth it, not because I feel driven to do it. That's what she wanted. But she realized after we started working on this aspect of her journey that her thoughts were very much out of alignment with the way she wanted to be. And so that was, the first step that we talked about in our very first class together, is let's get some awareness around, where are my thoughts and my desired behavior out of alignment? And those are the thoughts that I want to start to work with and shift them so that they're in alignment with who I ultimately see myself to be. You could say your authentic self or your aligned self. So she got really clear on what those thoughts were. And the thought, there were several, but the thought that I'll use here as our example is, the only way for me to lose weight is to be, on a diet, super restrictive. And if I'm not doing that, then it's not possible for me to lose weight. And it's, not possible for me to live in that free space with food. I have to be able to restrict and figure out how to do that long term in order to have the health and body that I want. So once she got really clear on the thought that was not serving her, she could start to ask herself that all important question of, how can I see this differently, right? If this thinking isn't working for me, how can I shift my thinking to be in alignment with what I want to be? So once that was identified, and she was really hearing how often in the day and in her own voice, what that thought was looking like and how it was showing up and how it was affecting her behavior. So then she was able to use the stepping stone thought method, which we talked about in week 2, stepping stone thoughts, to just kind of start to be open to the idea, right? That maybe there was another way she could be with her food that wasn't so restrictive, that wasn't that all or nothing, and still be able to release the extra weight. She decided, she couldn't say, yes, 100%, I know that that's true, but she could say to herself, I'm open to the idea that that could be the case. So she worked on that thought for a little bit. And then she was able to shift into the next thought, which was, I can trust my body to help me know how to eat in a way that is both sustainable and lead to weight loss. So she was shifting her thoughts over time to something that was believable, right? Because we talked about the fact that you can't just jump from, a thought that's way over here on the spectrum to one that's way over here on the spectrum. You're going to have a lot of resistance. And when there's a lot of resistance, the brain kind of shuts down to it. So you're not really building that new neural pathway if you're choosing something that's just way too far. So she built her stepping stone thoughts and slowly saw herself shifting so that that old way of thinking, like the only way for me to lose weight is to be super restrictive and on a diet, started to really fade away. Neural pruning, which we said happens when we no longer put time and energy focus on an old thought. And then she used evidence journaling, which was another tool that we talked about in week 2. So she was looking for the evidence that her new belief that she could find some freedom with food, be less restrictive overall, and still be able to lose weight. So for the evidence, just one piece of evidence that she found, for example, was that she had taken a trip, I don't know, it was something like a year, maybe 2 years before. And on that trip, she didn't have the day-to-day stressors that she would normally encounter. She was able to rest, and she was surrounded by beauty and fun, and the food that she ate, she wasn't really paying attention to, how much, or am I being restrictive? Am I being free? It just kind of happened that way because she wasn't needing to emotionally eat, and she was enjoying this nourishing food in quantities that felt good because she was going slow and paying attention. She also walked a fair bit on that vacation, and she came home and was really surprised that she had lost 2 pounds in this trip, but she wasn't trying. So that gave her some evidence, like, hey, maybe there is another way. That happened to me once, right? So that's just one example of the evidence that she gathered to help her, take in this new belief and work with it and allow her brain to start to accept it. And then, like we talked about last week with the visualization, our minds being incredibly adept at forming new neural pathways just by imagining things. So she could use visualization to see herself in situations where her old belief would have caused her to act out of alignment, and saw herself acting in a way that she wanted to instead. So for her, in this example, she would often skip breakfast because she wanted to, save those calories, cut those calories. But then inevitably, every day or almost every day, she'd end up overeating later in the day because her body was way behind its energy needs. And that restriction caused a boomerang effect and caused her to overeat. So she could visualize herself with her new way of thinking, nourishing herself at proper intervals throughout the day, so she didn't have that kind of crash and drive to overeat later in the day. And so she was using that tool as well and seeing that shift. And the last thing with respect to her thoughts was that she was able to anchor in those new thoughts with repetition and strong emotion. And that's what I want to give you today as the next layer to this thought redirection method that you've been using, learning about and using. And this is the place where I think it's really important to mention, a lot of times people get to this point in their thought journey and working with their thoughts, and they say to themselves, well, I've developed the new thinking and I'm trying to remember to use it, but it's not working. My old thoughts just keep coming in. And so there's a lot of frustration around that. And maybe even the belief like, okay, maybe that works for somebody else, but it doesn't work for me. And so that's why I really want to make it clear that, if it takes consistency, right? It takes dedication, consistency. You can't just formulate your new thought and then say to yourself, okay, I'm done. That's supposed to be my new thought now. What's wrong with me? It's not taking hold or whatever. It's just not how it works. Because remember, I've talked about this, and you're probably tired of hearing me say it, but the old thought is the smooth downhill with your roller skates. The new thought is through the jungle. So if you're not yet experiencing your new thought as much as your old thought, that's okay. That's just part of the process, and understanding that. So if you're not having results, the two questions to ask yourself is, one, am I being consistent with my practice? Am I really meeting those old thoughts and saying, oh, hey, old thought, I remember you, I'm choosing not to follow you anymore. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my brain. And even though it feels kind of takes a little bit of my energy right now, I'm going to shut you down and I'm going to embrace my new thought. You have to do that enough times for it to really take hold. So if you're, like I said, feeling like, gosh, I thought that I'd be thinking my new thought more easily by this time. Number one, look at your consistency and just kind of ask yourself, have I really been diving into my new thoughts? And have I really been, pushing my old thoughts away and reminding myself, those are not me. Those were just things that I repeated to myself over and over. There's a neural pathway there. I'm allowing it to prune away. And the second thing is if you're in that spot where you say, gosh, I'm working with my new thoughts, but I'm just not adapting them. I'm not adopting them the way I wanted to. The other thing that I've talked about in our other weeks is if your nervous system is activated, if you're on high alert, we actually don't make new neural pathways. And so that is a big part of the struggle, and often something that is overlooked. We don't realize that is a big factor. Our nervous system has to be in a place of good regulation in order for us to create new neural pathways, think new thoughts, in order for us to develop new habits, in order for us to stand in our emotions and be able to process them. So that is always something that I want to bring up to you, because it is such an important piece. And it's really frustrating for me to see people putting in time and effort and not getting anywhere because their nervous system is just not in a place to accept that growth and transformation. So we will continue to talk about that. But if you're feeling stuck, just, ask yourself those two questions. Am I being consistent with my practice? Am I really working with my new thoughts? And do I need to give it a little more time? And also, how's my nervous system doing? Am I feeling stressed or feeling overwhelmed a lot of the time? Those are indicators that maybe my nervous system is in a state of high activation. So as I said, with the example that we're using today of Melissa, she's working through the tools that I've been laying out for you over the past few weeks. And the last thing I mentioned is that she worked with her new thoughts through repetition and through strong positive emotion. So let me talk about those a little bit. The first one, repetition. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Your old thoughts became your habitual thoughts that were so easy to follow because you repeated them, because you thought them many, many times. And it's not that there's any flaw or, that's just my personality or that's just who I am. Not really. It's just that you thought those thoughts many, many times and you put your attention on them and gave them your energy. And that's why they became so habitual for you. So in the same way that happened, right? You may hear that and think, oh no, that's terrible news. I have all these pathways I don't want, but it's actually great news because it means that the same process is going to apply as you create your new thoughts and your new pathways. Just like I've been saying, there is a method to it, and it does take a little bit of time, but the same way that your old thoughts became smooth and, downhill, your new thoughts can become that too. And one of the important ways is through repetition. So repetition, can look different for different people. It's not that, there's one right way to do it. It's just simply, how often are you engaging with the new thought that you want to make your new habitual thought? Some of the things that I recommend and that people really like and find effective are putting your new thoughts on stickies and putting them in places where you're going to see them many times a day. Another thing that was really effective for me is I would put my new thoughts in my phone as a timer to go off. So at 10 o'clock, a reminder would pop up and it would be my new thought. And so even if I didn't, take time to sit and read it and think about it, I saw it, and that triggered something in my brain to kind of adopt that thought more and more. So that can be really effective. Other things that excuse me, I've done and recommended is to have a first page or first couple of places in my journal to write my new thoughts. And then that way, when I get my journal out, before I do anything else, I'll read over my new thoughts. So I'm connecting with them there. And also I'm going into my journaling with those thoughts in mind, taking a few minutes to journal on them, to think about where is this showing up, and just give reflection and, just looking at how will things be different as I adopt this new thought. All of those things, talking with people about your new thoughts. And that doesn't mean you have to sit down with them and say, hey, here's my new thoughts that I'm thinking, but you can find a way to kind of work that into conversation. Oh yeah, I know what you mean. I've been thinking, the same thing myself, or whatever, however you will relate to it. But that's how we get that repetitive engagement with the new thoughts. And that's how that neural pathway gets strengthened easier and easier. And then the last thing that I want to give you is anchoring in with strong emotion. Okay, so when we are engaging, when we're doing this engagement with our new thoughts, like I'm describing, if you can put some strong positive emotion to it, you are going to build that new neural pathway in an incredibly efficient manner. And we can see this playing out in PTSD, people that struggle with that, because the reason why that memory is so strong and so ingrained in them is that it was formed at a time when there was strong emotion at the same time. And that strong emotion really wired that into their minds. And, it's unfortunate in that case, but we can use that same principle, that same way that our brain works, to our advantage. Because if we can start to attach some strong positive emotion to the thoughts as we're working with them, we're going to build our neural pathway quicker. It's going to become strong much, much sooner. So what do I mean by that? How do I attach strong emotion, right, to a thought that I'm thinking? And it is a little bit, you have to create it. But it can be as simple as, looking at your thought, working with your thought, and thinking excitement about this becoming my new thought and what it's going to create for me. Joy that you had access to this thought. There may have been a time in your journey where you couldn't even imagine that you'd be open to that thought. And so now you can, have some excitement around the fact, man, I'm working towards this thought. This is going to become my new thought. Gratitude that this is, available to you, and that you have the method and the tools now to do that. Optimism, this is going to work. This is different than the things that I've tried in the past. So I can expect a different result. Just getting some, some hype around this new way, and this way that you're shifting. And if you can generate some of that excitement, joy, gratitude, optimism, whatever it is, at the same time that you're working with those thoughts just really can take hold. We're anchoring them in through using our strong emotion. And I always describe this as, if building a neural pathway is kind of like building a highway. When you attach strong positive emotion to it, you're like getting the crews in from all the neighboring states to come and help you build that highway. It gets done fast, it gets done efficiently, and it's, it's a hack, right? To create that neural pathway in a more efficient way. So now you can think of, the process, the awareness that you gathered, and then, thinking about, how do I want to shift my thinking, using stepping stone thoughts, using evidence journaling to bring in evidence that helps you accept that thought. And then the visualization, which helps you see, how am I going to act when I'm in alignment with that new thinking, visualizing it so that the neural pathway is there the next time you go to make that choice. And then strengthening those new thoughts through repetition and through strong positive emotion. I want to just take a quick second here and see if there are any questions about either the process or anything that we talked about today so far. You guys are brilliant. You got it. And it makes sense, right? You can kind of see how this is playing out with respect to old thoughts. And then now we can see, the same process for the thoughts that I want to have instead. Yes, Joanne, I would love to hear from you.
Oh, hi. Sorry, my sound was on all that time. I thought it was off. I'm sorry.
No problem. Yeah, we're small enough. It works just fine.
Okay. So this is so exciting because a while back when I first started really, really deciding to change my thoughts, like I started working on this like full on, probably, I don't know, maybe 7 months ago, 8 months ago, full on. I mean, we knew about this stuff, but I never really told myself, okay, Joanne, you're really going to do this. Like, okay, you're going to commit to it. So when I did, automatically what happened for me was I saw the willow bush and I thought, okay, it's a thick willow bush. There's no paths in there. There's no trails, maybe trails that animals use, but that's it. So for me to use that trail, I have to get in there with the machete and the tools to chop down the trail. Exactly. And when you first make the trail, there's still little sticks sticking up and you could trip on those sticks when you're going until you keep clearing. So I just kept telling myself, okay, every time you go by that path, you're going to clear it. And then with your new thought, whatever the new thought is, and I'm dancing and on my right side of my brain, I rub my pathway because that's where you create the new pathways when you're doing it. It's on the right side of your brain. Yeah. And so instinctively, I went to the right side of my brain. I thought I was already on target with the right side of my brain. Wow. So your then
intuition. It's really strong.
Yeah, I'm visualizing the willow bush. I have my new thought, whatever that might be. Oh, I'm going to make $1 million by the end of this year, whatever it is. And then I'm scratching my brain. I'm visualizing the willow bush and I'm making the pathway and it's getting clear, lower and lower every time. And now I have gravel on it. And now it's a grassy pathway now. Yeah. Grass grew over it. It's really pretty. And there's on the sides, it's willow still. And then when I come out of that willow bush, I'm at the water and it's just beautiful. And I could see the lake. I could see the sailboats. I could see like the activity on the water. Yeah. And then I turn around and go back again. And then I'm working and I just keep doing that now. And it's automatic when I get to my vision and then the thought, and I'm thinking about the thought. So everything you're saying is so surreal and it just makes me think of all the stuff that I've been doing with changing my thoughts.
Right.
And then when I track my thoughts, and like you said, in your journal, when I go to the journal, I write them down in a place where I could write them down and I'll have it open and I've got something else. And I write it down and then, I have another one and I write it down. And then just brainstorming, no analyzing myself, just write it down. Doesn't matter. Write it down. And so it's exciting when I go back to those.
Yeah.
And I look at what I wanted to change my thoughts to. So I agree with everything you're saying. And it really works and it takes repetition.
Yeah. And I so appreciate that you can come to us here and say, this has been my experience, because sometimes when we're, early on, or we haven't done a lot of work with our thoughts, when the old thoughts come in and we do, it's very discouraging. You're like, wait a minute, but I know I want to think this instead. Why won't this leave me alone? And
yes, and feels, you do. Yeah, you're right. And then I'll say, oh, no, that's okay. Because that's the old willow bush, and that all those trails they're growing in now. The bush is growing in the old thoughts. That's fine. but over here's the new trail, Joanne. We're on the new trail. And then I just have to kind of, like
Right.
what you've been saying, self-talk and just tell ourselves, it's okay. We just had a mishap. That's okay. We just went back to our old behavior.
Yeah.
It
It's
takes time to
natural,
change a
right?
new behavior. It's
Yeah.
perfectly natural to
Yeah.
change something. You have to keep doing it to make it your own, to make it like your second breath.
That's right. Yeah, it becomes your new habitual way. Yeah, and it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if we think about, it took me for it to get this strong, for my old thought to get this strong, it took me a long time, right? A lot of this thinking has been around for years and decades. So
Yeah.
the idea that we're going to in a week's time or in a couple weeks time, we're going to completely shut that whole system down, right? That's not very realistic. And as long as we have that perspective, and now we have Joanne saying, hey, I've been through this. I have literally gone through this process and I've been able to create my new thoughts. And you do it over and over. And the really cool thing is that, we're talking about it with respect to what are the thoughts that keep me from living free with food and being able to lose weight, but it applies to every single thing in your life. So you're learning about how to, regain your health and, develop your nourishing, healthy relationship with food. But this is the same mythology that you're going to use to open up your whole life. So it is super useful learning. And Joanne, once again, I appreciate you, giving us that, because seeing how it works and knowing that, okay, I feel stuck, but actually I'm not, I'm just pushing my way through, is really valuable for all of us to remember that. So I appreciate that very much. We had a question come in too about, what kind of thoughts should I put on these stickies? If I'm going to be repeating thoughts, what kind of thoughts should they be? And, of course, that's a little bit different for each one of you, because you're identifying what are the thoughts for me that are keeping me stuck, that are out of alignment with the way I want to live and have relationship with food in my body, or whatever it is. And we talked about, the different types of thoughts, like losing weight is just so hard, or maybe I don't have I'm lazy. I think that was one that was brought up, and if you're thinking that, or if you're thinking, oh, I've tried so many times before and it didn't work, so what's the point? If those are the kinds of thoughts that you're having, then how can we shift them? Let's see. I sleep deeply and soundly. Yes, sleeping. So if you're having, Joanne gave us the example, if you're, going to bed at night, for example, and you're kind of anxious that, oh, maybe I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. I've had trouble sleeping over the last few months, whatever. Shifting your thinking to I sleep, deeply and restfully, whatever, can help you just release that anxiety, so that that's not playing into whether you can get to sleep at night. But some of the thoughts that might be useful are things like, if you say, well, this is going to fail, everything I'm going to try with dieting or with, regaining my health, whatever, is going to fail because I've failed many times in the past. And I would challenge that, because I don't think you ever fail. I think that plans fail you. But anyway, you could say something like, I'm trying something new now and I can expect a new result. You could say something like, you can acknowledge where you are, and say something like, I have felt like I was lazy in the past, but now I realize that my nervous system needed some attention. And as I do that, I'm going to grow my capacity. You can, simply say, I don't know if you have an example of a thought that you want me to give you something specific. We can certainly do that. I'm just kind of throwing out some general ideas. We have the comments that you might see, my nervous system is calm and open to receive. Just these little shifts, we don't have to go to straight from, wherever we are into this Pollyanna, oh, I'm so fabulous. I can do everything I want to. Everything's going to be fine. I'm going to make it this time, whatever. If that's too far and you feel a lot of resistance around it, then that's not your right stepping stone thought. So it really depends, of course, on where you're starting. What is the awareness told you about the thought that you is not serving you, so that you can start to develop the thought that will. And again, if you have like a specific statement that you're working on and you can't quite figure out what would be a good stepping point, just either unmute yourself and we can talk about it, or put it in the chat and we can brainstorm a little bit around what would be that next appropriate stepping stone thought for me. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, the thought, I'm a failure at losing weight. That is so common, because we've had, a couple of experiences that didn't work out, and so our brain says, yep, it's never going to work. Here's the evidence that I've gathered, and here's the result. So how can you open that up? And I can make a couple suggestions and just play with it so that it feels like your own thought. It feels like what you're ready to adopt. But something like what I was saying in the past, the things that I have tried in the past did not serve me. And I'm grateful that there are new ways for me to try to be in alignment. Or you could say, if you're working, like, for example, this comes up a lot. So I tell people who are working with me in the Freedom Program to remind themselves, like, this program is very different and I can expect a different result. I can, with the right tools and support, I can be a success at losing weight. Those kind of ideas that just open you up to that shift, that I'm not a failure. I just haven't done the right thing for me yet. I haven't had the right pieces in place yet. And as I work on them and bring them in, of course I'll be able to. I'm doing something different. I'm not trying the same old stuff that I've tried in the past. To try the same old stuff would lead to the same old result. But now I'm doing something different. I'm really understanding my patterns. I'm understanding how my thoughts play into it, and the other things of the 5 pillars that I talked about. So trying on some of that and just seeing if you can shift. Again, you don't have to go straight to, I am a huge success in losing weight and I don't have to worry about it. Like, that just, okay, whatever, big eye roll from the brain. So you want to just kind of tap into, what am I ready to accept today that starts to shift me in the right direction? So again, with our example person, Melissa, who's very representative, was how she kind of worked through in a brief, way. It obviously took a long time. It wasn't that she did this overnight or even within the 4 weeks. It was something that she worked on and built and saw shifts along the way. She also, of course, worked on her nervous system, which I talk about all the time, because if your nervous system is not in a regulated place, these things don't really happen. You can't develop new neural pathways when your nervous system is highly activated. She also, of course, at the same time that she was doing this thought redirection, worked on the other 5 pillars, which were the self-acceptance and compassion for where you are today, even while you work towards change. Building habits, shifting out of habits that don't serve, and doing that in a way that works with your brain, using neuroscience, our knowledge of neuroscience, to build and shift out of habits. The 3rd piece, her thoughts. The 4th piece, building that emotional resiliency so that she could be aware of, process her emotions, and no longer need food to help her cope with the kinds of, undesirable emotions that she would experience. And then the 5th piece, working with her body to know what is the nutrition that leaves me feeling energized, that feels good in my system, and takes care of my cravings and all the things, and still allows me to release weight. So she, this is in the context of those other 5 pillars and working with her nervous system. So now you have one of the most powerful tools in this process, at least a basic understanding of it. And you may be at this point kind of wondering to yourself, okay, now what, right? This is the 4th class in the thinking. And I did, I've got those tools. I'm kind of working to see this, weight loss picture nourishing relationship with food and body. I'm working to see it from a different perspective, but now what do I do? So I just want to take, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes to go over with you the Freedom Program so that you can have a sense of, how that supports you. You already have some really good understanding of what it entails because I've talked to you about the nervous system and the 5 pillars. So Freedom is, it is a very comprehensive program that teaches you how to shift out of negative thinking, how to work with your emotions, and free yourself from the behaviors that don't serve you by confidently helping you work with your body, understand your patterns, and meet your needs in different ways. It's never about learning how to just control yourself and how to say, nope, you shouldn't need food. It's really about understanding, why do I need food? So that I can meet those needs, so that I can no longer have food on my mind, so that it's not about trying to say, okay, how do I stop myself when food comes to my mind? It's eliminating it altogether so that you're never in that place of needing to control yourself, to just have a very, natural and nourishing relationship with food. It's certainly not another diet, right? Because diets exacerbate the problem by setting up that binge restrict cycle, that all or nothing way of thinking that has absolutely gotten you nowhere. The research really shows that the best way to gain weight is to go on a diet. It's crazy, but it's true. It just can't work for us. We are not for our bodies, not for our psyche. In no way will that ever be effective. So we need to shift out of that and into what we're really needing and what will actually work for us. And so I want to, and especially address the comment that came in, I'm a failure at weight loss. This is something is so hard for me to think about, that there are so many women out there with this mindset. And I would say, when I say so many, I mean so many. They have been through so many different ways that they've tried to lose weight. And of course they've failed at them because they were violating their bodies in a lot of ways. And so the only thing those attempts did for them was give them this belief that they're not able to do this. And that's the biggest lie that there is. You absolutely are able to do this. And it just requires the right tools. Let me pause for a second and ask Darcy, you have a question, my dear?
I have a comment.
Perfect.
As I was sitting here, I'm reading my affirmations on my tower over here.
Nice.
And I just received one that I thought I'd pass on. It says, I am always craving weight releasing foods. And you want to release it. You don't want to lose it, because you can always find it again if you lose it.
Absolutely. I love that. The release and also, yeah. So if your thinking is, my body I just crave pizza, or I just crave ice cream. I have no control with pizza. I have no control with ice cream, whatever. If that is your thinking that's limiting you, something like what Darcy is embracing, my body wants, these kinds of foods. My body wants to be fed healthy things. So that's perfect for, that particular thought. Is the best way to work with a thought like that is to embrace, the idea that you are what you're wanting to behave, how you're wanting to behave, what's in alignment with that. Well, if right now I believe I have no control with these foods and I only crave these kinds of things, for you to shift your thinking into, actually, I really do crave. And you can do some evidence journaling around that, because I bet you there are plenty of times when you're kind of in a more calm space where you're thinking to yourself, I just really feel like some vegetables, right? Or a salad or something like that. So I think that is a great thought that you can work with. So yes, thank you for Darcy for that. That's very helpful. So I want to talk now and address that idea, like I'm a failure, but In the program that is that I've created, Freedom, it is a very different approach. It, like I said, is not a diet. It's actually several things make it very unique as opposed to what you might have tried in the past. So let me share that with you so that you can start to see that there are other ways to go about it that are going to be successful for you. One of them is the thing I talk about so much because it's so important, and I've devoted a lot of my last few years to understanding the nervous system and how it plays out in transformation of all kind, but especially with weight loss and food, because food is such a sense of safety for us. When our nervous systems are not in a place of regulation, when we're feeling either, stress or overwhelm, and just kind of living outside of our capacity, all of those kinds of things, we can't make change, especially to our food, because it creates more danger for us. So the Freedom Program begins with a whole section on how to re-regulate your nervous system, how to rewire it, so that you can be in a state where you are open to the practices. And that's, again, I talk a lot about, I've seen people come and they've tried this, they've tried that, and it might even be really good things that could help them, but their nervous system is just kind of preventing them from being able to really take that in and integrate it in their lives. And so Freedom starts with nervous system regulation. And secondly, Freedom is different because it's very comprehensive. It encompasses work in the mind and the body and the spirit, because if you're not taking all of those into account, then you're not healing all the pieces that need to be healed in order for you to make shifts. So all of those are, really encompassed in the work that we do. We also make sure that it is individualized for you, because no journey is the same. There's a lot of similarities, a lot. And you don't realize that until you get in communion with other people who are on the same journey, but we're all sharing these set of thoughts, just like I'm a failure at this, and this is going to be the same thing that I've already done, and I won't be able to do it. All of those kinds of things, we're all experiencing them when we're going through these challenges with food, but there's also a very individualized aspect to it. And so it has to be that way. Your set of circumstances that brought you to this place is different than anyone else's, and your needs are different than anyone else's. So the program has to address that and has to be moldable to fit you, both your pace and what you're ready for, everything. And it also, very different from a lot of programs, is that it takes eating psychology into account. So that's been another area of that I've dove into, so that we can understand, why do I do these things? I'm not bad for doing them. Why do they serve a purpose for me? What is it that I am needing, and why are my habits the way they are? Because when we understand that, then we can put into place the new plans that actually meet our needs better. Because as we know, we can turn to food, and that does help us for about 15 minutes, right? And so that's why we continue to do it, because there is help there, but it's short-lived and it interferes with long-term goals and our health. So that's why it's not effective. And just because we use it now doesn't mean we have to keep using it, but we have to understand the purpose that it's serving for us before we can shift out of it. And that's what the eating psychology piece brings to the table. And then the other thing about it is that it is not just education, because education alone, it's necessary to shift and to transform, but by itself, it doesn't produce any results. In order to actually have results, you have to know how to take that knowledge and use it, bring it into your everyday, your experiences, not just in an abstract way, but for me, how does this apply? How do I work it into my life and integrate it? And so every week there are assignments and ways for you to take the information that you're learning and actually use it. And that piece is crucial. There's also that support piece, which is, weekly meetings. And whether that is one-on-one, if you choose that option, or group option, either way, It's got to be hands-on. We can get ourselves off track in a matter of moments, let alone a matter of a week's time. So we really need, especially in the beginning, to tie in, to be having these conversations about those thought shift, because I'll tell you what, that old thought, I'm a failure at losing weight, that thought is not going to step aside unless there are plenty of other supportive thoughts coming in about how this is different, how you can be different in this moment. So that's really key. And also there's other support built in. There's if you sign up for the group option, there's a opportunity if you'd like to be in the group chat, which provides, that in the moment, here I am, I'm triggered right now. And for you to have a place to reach out, to get support in those moments, there can be big shifts happening right inside that space. If you can be, if you're able to, get some support around that. There are also weekly emails and certainly email support. Should you get stuck on, some piece that you're integrating or have a question or whatever, you don't have to wait the whole week. I'm available through email to help out so that you can keep moving forward and not feel stuck for any number of days. And the last thing that I'll say about how it's a little bit different is the length. You can find a lot of things that are, 3 weeks long, 3 months long, and good stuff maybe. But the fact is that it takes us a while for our brains to shift in perspective, for us to learn the information, and then for us to have life experiences that show us how to use it. And I'm not saying that it takes a year to have results. It doesn't at all. But for those results to be truly, to really stick, you need to have some time and some experiences. And so that's why it's a year long. And I was speaking with my group on Saturday, and the question came up around how the plan was structured and things like that. And as I explained and said, I do this because I was in that place for decades, and it literally stole my life. And seeing my life now compared to that, I have a deep, deep desire. It is my mission to help as many people as I can get to this new place and live their life and have all their time and energy and life force back, instead of having it go into my battle with food and struggle in my body. And so I will only do things that I know are going to help people shift. I don't want to be a part of another attempt that failed. So I won't do those short things, even though I know I could be more successful if I had, little things that I was just offering out here and there for a fee. But I know that it's not the answer. I know that this is the answer. This is the package that takes people from, where they are to where they want to be with food. And that is the only way that I will do it. So this is some of the aspects of the program. It is a weekly video education for you that you watch on your own, and an integration piece that allows you to take that information and use it in your life. And then a weekly touch where we, have the coaching and share, how did that go? We evaluate it, not in a judgmental way, but just asking the question of gathering information. And then we set your steps for the next 7 days. So it's 7 days at a time. It's a bite every 7 days, instead of looking at this whole great big picture and trying to figure out, how do I bring that into my life? You've got 1 or 2 things that you're focused on for the next 7 days. That's all you need to worry about. And as long as you, put your effort in there, you're gonna just keep moving forward. That's how I deliver it, is through the education, the integration, and the coaching. So I have just opened up enrollment for the group that starts in March. The first, I think it's the 4th, that schedule I will have available, but it is, I keep it small because that's how it needs to be in order for everybody to be able to have the attention that they need and have that close knit group. So that is open now. And I do have spots still available for the March start. And I have just been blown away by the group. Honestly, it is such a beautiful place of growth and compassion and love and strength and power and inspiration. And it's really beautiful to see. And especially, starting with that nervous system foundation that I always talk about, to see these people really have bigger shifts because of that foundation. And so it's been very exciting, and I'm super happy with how they're doing and how it's playing out. You can, if you're interested and you want to hear more stories, like, Melissa, that I described today, there are a few representative stories on the website. We chose, kind of the ones that were the most like. So you can go there and kind of look at that and see what people are saying about their own experience. So now I'd just like to, ask if there are any questions about anything that we've talked about in the last 4 weeks, anything about the program itself, that I can answer for you if you're at all considering, what's my next step? How am I going to continue with the progress that I've made? One thing I'll also say is maybe you take this, maybe you want to look at Freedom online and just kind of, go over it yourself. And then if you're wondering, hey, is this something that I'm ready for? Is this something that would really serve me? Then we can jump on, you'll see a link for a discovery session where we can, talk about your individual needs and all of that. We have a question. When will the next class start? I don't know. It's given that I'm starting my new group, I want to make sure that I have plenty of time and attention for that. So it may be that I'll do something else maybe in August. The next group class, if you're thinking of the group, starts the first week of March. But as far as the series like I'm doing now, I can't say for sure, but my guess would be probably August for that. I love to do it. I just always have to make sure that, my group is off and running and everybody's got what they need initially. So just a matter of time for me to be able to do that. But yeah. Well, I really want to thank you all for spending this time with me. I really love this. I would love to expand this, and I know that I will as time goes on, and I've got little ones right now. And so it's, as their schedule changes and stuff, and maybe I'll be able to do these classes more frequently. But it's been a real joy to be in here with you guys, and I appreciate your time, because like I said, it's really, really important to me that I can be doing anything that I can to help people shift. And so the Freedom Channel, which is all my free resources and things like this, allow me to do that. It makes me excited to be, doing what I'm doing. So I appreciate you for taking your time and spending it with me in this way. Yeah. So, okay, well, this is going to be available on the replay if you, get to thinking about it, and you want to go back and think about any of those, the tools that we're adding on for this week. And please know, if you're working on this stuff that we've been talking about, you get stuck, you want a suggestion for a thought to, and you're just being not able to really get that right one, email me and let's make sure that you get the support that you need to make this really useful. Okay. I appreciate you guys, and hopefully I'll be connecting with you guys again soon. Okay. Michelle, yes, I certainly will. Michelle is asking, let me see, I'm going to make sure I get that right. Start and how much is it? Yes. So the next group is March. I'm going to put 4th, but I just want to confirm that. I'm almost certain that that's the date, but it's like, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, something like that for the start of the group. And the cost for group is $300 per month. Right around that. I think actually I'm going to put it's $315 if I do the math right. And that, I'll just say one thing about the price. It is, if you want to research a little bit, and you should always, a program with weekly live coaching. And what it is, I've not seen any program that is either twice as much or much more. Totally honest with you, my heart is I just have to do this for as little as I can, so that I can help, other people. Like I said, that was just such a journey for me, and such a beautiful life, that I want that for people. So like I said, do your research, but you will find that a high touch program like this, including, one-on-one calls and other things like that, it's twice as much and on up. So I feel really good about where I'm able to offer it to people. So check it out. Do email me or schedule a call if I can help you at all figure out if this is something that that you would be interested in, that would help you. Yeah, so I would really love to do that. And also, don't forget, if you get stuck on any of the work that you're doing now, let me know so we can talk about it. Yeah. All right, ladies. I'm so sorry that you're having trouble hearing, Michelle, on this, computers, programs, but there that is for the start and the monthly. So, okay, my dears, thank you so much again. And I look forward to seeing you soon. I'll let you know about the classes. Maybe we could do something, retreat style or something for fun coming up. Okay. Michelle, I'm gonna just get your email, Michelle, so that I can have it there for you to be easier if you can look at it and see it a little bit better that way. So okay, I'm going to jump into my other teaching. Hopefully, maybe I'll see one or two of you there. Let me get this email.